Record now. All right, I started recording. um, so welcome to the second episode of the American Swirl podcast. I'm Rudy Martinez.
I am Raw Elder.
How are you, Raul?
You know, can't complain too much on my personal end. Um, last week was frustrating, right?
Yeah.
You got a bunch of people calling themselves patriots, acting very unpatriotic.
Yeah. That's the damnedest thing about it, isn't
The damnedest.
it?
Yeah.
We kind of had the day after. Today's Monday. We're recording Monday, so the Capitol insurgency, or whatever you want to call it, coup attempt, happened Wednesday, and the day after, you and I were like, we got to get this. We got to record. We got to at least talk about what we're feeling.
Yeah.
Now that you've had time to digest it, process it, read about what Congress is or isn't doing, watch how people, since then, 45 has been thrown off of Twitter and pretty much every other social media application. Parler has been demolished, and now it's being brought back. They did find a new host for the website, so it's only going to be down today.
Yeah.
So a lot's happened. How have you processed the last 4 or 5 days?
You know, honestly, the first day I was shocked, right? Right when the uprising was happening, I was shocked, and then perspective, this has been our country. It's nothing different. It hasn't changed. You and I were speaking earlier in the week, and we're talking about how black people always step up when it's time to save the country, and and that's starting to happen with brown people as well. But it seems like we save the country, and then for whatever reason, our countrymen of
Don't have
the
your back.
Caucasian, right? They don't have your back, or they go out of their way to take everything that we fought for away from the people that has fought the hardest.
I was reading, I think it was Bree Newsom. I don't know if you know who she is. Uh, Back when the Confederate flag was a big thing, she was the young woman who climbed up. I think it was South Carolina, climbed up the South Carolina flagpole and ripped down the Confederate flag. She got arrested for it and whatever. I'm pretty sure it was her. I follow her on Twitter. She's amazing. She pointed out, and a lot of people have pointed out, though, that in our country, every time, uh, specifically, Black America takes a couple of steps forward or makes progress, they always have to pay for it.
Yeah.
Trump is really the payment for 8 years of having a Black president, and it always just seems, and like, think about it. If you think about it, the same day that Georgia elects its first Black senator, the Capitol gets breached. So
Exactly.
it is our history. You're right. When I read, this is not who we are. Well, if it happens over and over and over and over again, at what point do you say, this is who we are?
This is kind of who we
But
are, and we need to change it.
Well, I will say this though, because I do think this is who we are. And I forgot that for a minute because I think I got swept up in 8 years of Obama. But this election, 2020, the first night I remember before the election result was called, it looked like Trump was leading everywhere. And I went to bed convinced that he had won. And I made a comment on Facebook about it, a post about, this. I just didn't think this is who we were, dumbass. And a friend of mine, Black comedian, Corey, said, this is always who we've been.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is one of those things where it's like, if we just shut up and listen, because I feel like there's so many things, if we just shut up and listen to Black America talking to us about race, it's no different than if we shut up and listen to women talking to us about misogyny, or anybody else talking to us about whatever it is that's directly affecting them. and stop presuming that we know, I think we'd be a lot better along. But I also think this is who we are. I've accepted that. But I will also say we are also the country that in fits and starts gets better. Somebody asked on Twitter today, anybody over 30, is it always been like this? Like, have you always been living through history? So I started going back in my head. I'm a 48-year-old man.
You're old.
So I am old. My brother would be all old man balls. But anyway, I started thinking, I'm like, okay, so the first thing I remember is one of the first things I remember was the gas shortage. I remember the Beirut bombing of our Marine Corps barracks. And I think it was something like 200 of our guys died.
Yeah.
Hostages in Iran. And then I remember AIDS. I remember, apartheid, the Berlin Wall coming down, the Cold War, that entire time that was happening.
Yeah.
And then, the fall of communism. And then I graduated high school. So this all was happening, and it was just like, and I'm like, if you're really honest with yourself, if you look at the world at large, it's always happening. I think the only difference is this is just happening to us. This particular thing we're used to seeing happen in places like Venezuela, and it's happening here. And I think we've been so arrogant into thinking that could never happen here. But
that's the thing, though. A lot of suburban and Midwestern America has been saying this will never happen here. People in the inner cities, they've been dealing with this forever. People in the inner city, Black America, anyone that's poor has been dealing with this. Like, they tell you to pull. I was going to say, this country has a history of telling, disenfranchised people to pull up your bootstraps. Mm-hmm. And then we pull up our bootstraps and they steal our boots.
That's a great analogy. Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, and actually, case in point, because you were sitting there saying, people in big cities. I don't even think it's just people in big cities. I think if you were to come out to places like the South and Mississippi and Alabama, and you were to talk to old school Black people who grew up here, they would say, yeah. I mean, and then honestly, if you open up a history book and you look at what happened after the Civil War, this is just, to me, the natural evolution of everything that's happened since the Civil War. Because after the Civil War, in places like Mississippi and places like Alabama, you had a predominantly Black community. Mm-hmm. Suddenly they're free. Suddenly they're free to vote, free to own property, free to hold office. And in places like Mississippi, for a minute, it was an almost all Black government, and KKK and just basically white people in general were pissed. And that led to a lot of violence, a lot of death. And it was one of those things. It's like you take 2 steps forward and you're going to have to take another 3 steps back. Yep. And that's, the slaves were free. Black people were free of slavery. And the minute they try to do something with that, they get hit with a hammer. And then Jim Crow, and then, civil rights. And it's like every movement forward gets answered with okay, we're going to give you this, but you know what? Boom, boom, we're going to hit you with a couple of other things.
Yeah. Hey, you're free, but you're not that free.
Right. But my much larger point was, who we also are is that we still keep going forward. Today, you have it way better than your dad did, who Absolutely. No doubt had it better than his parents had it, who had it better,
Absolutely. And I was going to make that point as well. We are continually progressing, right?
Right.
And
but it's always a fight. Fuck.
But it's always a fight. And there was a video you sent me the other day, and the gentleman was saying that, not only is white supremacy the threat to democracy, but democracy is also a threat to white supremacy, right?
Right.
Because every time democracy works, white supremacy, it gets rattled.
Yeah.
Right?
Because the reality is, for democracy to work, for it to really work,
everyone has to participate.
Everyone. And it's so and that is absolutely the biggest deterrent to white power or white supremacy.
Yep.
And that's why they fight so hard to you know, thwart it.
Yeah,
Because let's be brutally honest, whether Biden won or not, the Constitution's in place. There are things that we do, and that's exactly what Congress was doing, whichever side of the aisle you fall on. They were absolute. That was the living, breathing embodiment of the Constitution. And so when the president riles up his base to go and attack that, he is, in my estimation, literally attacking the Constitution.
agreed.
And for me, I take that personal. Um, I try to kind of rein in how I talk about it. But I think if I'm brutally honest, what I will say is those guys, every one of them, men and women who stormed the Capitol, they're traitors.
They're
That is
traitors, absolutely.
sedition and treason. And in my opinion, and people can take this however they want, to me, they should be punished to the fullest extent of the law for treason. And that's all I'm going
Agreed.
to say about that.
I do
So,
not disagree at all. We were taught an oath and a code of ethics that I still live by to this day.
yep.
And a lot of those people there were told that same oath and those
Yeah.
that same code of ethics, and they abandoned that.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
There's, I think it was 25 military members
yeah,
that are under investigation for being there. I don't know if that was all active duty or active duty and veterans, but 25 of them were.
yeah. And there's
So,
guys standing. One of them's a combat veteran. He's standing in the middle of the damn Senate floor with zip
yep.
ties.
Yep.
Like, come on.
He's been arrested as a lieutenant colonel, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
He's been arrested. But I do have to say, and I kind of wanted to bring it back to this. I wanted to focus on a couple of things. I sent you a Wikipedia page about Frank Wills
Yes.
earlier in the day because reading about Officer Eugene Goodwin, or Goodman, I'm sorry, Officer Eugene Goodman kind of got me down a rabbit hole. So for those who are listening who don't know, and I can't imagine anybody doesn't know by now, Officer Eugene Goodman, if you watch the news at all, you saw one scene of a black officer by himself with a mass of these fucktards charging at him. And he's basically leading them up the stairs, and he gets to the top of the stairs and he seems to kind of corral them a very specific way. And he
Yeah.
did.
Away
He
from.
was,
Yeah.
because the opposite side of him was, to his left was the Senate chambers, and they were in there. And he did everything. I mean, I can't imagine the amount of stress and anxiety that he's under there, seeing all of these people rushing at him, knowing that he's the only thing that stands between, them and the Senate chambers. And he managed to herd them using his brain to just get them, you know what? Follow me. Follow me. Come on, let's go. It's not hyperbole to say that the man is a hero and that he probably saved lives.
Yeah.
But then just reading about him and all this, that, and going down that hole, I went down a rabbit hole, and I stumbled on
Frank Wills.
Frank Wills. And for those who don't know, he is the reason that Nixon
had to resign.
had to resign.
Yeah.
Because he was the one who noticed that there was some tomfoolery going on. And every Mexican listening to this is going to be like, you're not Mexican, you're using words like tomfoolery.
He's barely Mexican. He's barely Mexican.
Brown ass. He noticed that there was stuff going on, that were locks that were being messed with and whatever. And he was the one who notified authorities, hey, some shit's going down here at the Watergate Hotel. And then that whole thing blew up.
Yep.
The thing that really broke my heart, though, and that I really want to make sure, I don't know how, that we never let happen to Officer Goodman, is that the rest of Frank Will's life.
It's tragic.
Yeah. I mean, it was just heartbreaking. I mean, he got dragged out about 20 years after for, the anniversary of Watergate. And while people were making millions off of this, he could barely get a fucking job, you know? And I mean, to the point where people were like afraid to hire him because of how it would look, and so he died, I think he was 52. and he didn't have anything. He had nothing. And we need to do better by Officer Goodman, because these are people who are genuinely, again, saving our fucking democracy.
Saving our democracy and doing what they signed up for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Officer Goodman took his oath to heart. Like, my job is to protect the Capitol and to protect the Senate. And he corralled these people and herded these friggin' monsters away from the Senate floor.
Yeah.
To have the forethought in that situation, and the wherewithal to even keep a clear mind to do
Yep.
that is heroic all in itself.
Yep.
You know?
And I mean, think about it. This is the same time we have other people who are just taking selfies with them and all this other.
Right.
I have a feeling that in the coming years, we're going to find out just how perilous um, the whole situation was and how close we came to losing our democracy.
Yeah.
And it is no small thing to say, not just that we're living through history, but that our kids, our grandkids, their kids, they're going to be reading about Officer Goodman if they
I
do them
hope
right.
so. I hope
Me
so.
too. Me
I hope
too.
so.
Because that's,
Um, yeah.
and you've read some of the articles. There's a couple of black officers who were working it,
Yeah.
and they had police officers who were saying, just let me in, I'm one of you guys, and other people were like, we're doing this for you. I mean, there's also a whole lot of some racist shit being thrown at them too,
Yep.
and these guys kept their bearings. And anyway, I
Could have
can't say
easily
enough.
flipped out, and they kept their bearings and they did what they were supposed to do. And they're in the middle of this fight, and on the other side of the building, these other assholes are taking selfies and
Right.
just letting people in the building.
Yep. I will say this though, the we talked about this the day after. I've been watching a lot and I've been reading a lot, and more when I see these massive crowds pushing the barricades and up on the barricades and the officers, to me, it really does look like it's a relief valve. Like, okay, they're coming through. They're going to blow us over. Let's open this up, run, basically retreat to high ground and keep them in front of us. Um,
In
which is
some
really
areas, in some areas, I could say that, yeah, because we've been trained in certain situations for that, right?
right.
But there's some on those videos where there's guys that are literally just opening the gate and like, go ahead.
Yeah. And there are reports. I don't know if you've seen it yet, and I don't know that it's. Um, there was a video I watched today that turned my stomach, of them beating an officer. Like, they had him face down and they're beating the shit out of him. I'll find the video and I'll send it to you. I might even post a link to it in this podcast. Um, and there's a sick irony to it too, because these guys are beating the shit out of him, right? And these are the same guys who bitch about respecting the flag, and what are they beating the shit out of him with?
With a flag.
Fucking American flagpole.
Yeah.
And it's like, I I don't know.
This is
What's funny is that when we started this podcast, right? This whole podcast idea we had was completely different than where it is right now, because we weren't expecting the country to practically fall a fucking apart. We were
right.
expecting to be able to talk about, what it's like to be black in America, what it's like to be Latino in America, what it's like to, and bring all of these people in together in a beautiful melting pot. And instead we're like, let's talk about how our democracy held on by its fingernails. But it's true.
It is true. I do want to ask you though, how are you feeling after this week? I know you had. I know you're in FB jail right now. Twitter and Insta still has you open, but
I
how are you
am,
feeling?
you know, I've had different emotions. I'm not gonna lie. There have been times where I've just flat out, I've cried.
Yeah,
Um, Mostly I'm still angry. I'm looking at the reports that they're like planning on protesting at all 50 state capitals, and I'm sitting here. I'm like, how can I volunteer? How can I, you know, how can I be a security annex or whatever? Um, Excuse me, Whew, dinner. How can I help the people that are going to be there defending the state capitals? How can I do anything? But then I know me, and I know how angry I'm going to get, and
yeah,
the restraint. I think I'm too old to give a shit. You know, you want to throw me in jail? Cool. I got what, 20 years left? Fuck it. Let's do this. I'm going to take one of these fuckers out. So it's probably best that I stay home and just let the anxiety eat me alive.
Yeah.
I will say this though, what I have done, I I've written to both my senators, my congressmen. All three of them are Republican. They're all Trump lovers because I live, of course, in Trump country.
Florida. Yeah.
Yeah. And I got one response, which was cool. My representative, my congressman, wrote me back, thanking me for my letter and asking me if I would like to donate to his campaign. So fuck you, Dr. Neil Dunn. so, so that's about all that's done.
Awesome.
So that's how I've been. I'm frustrated too, though. You know, Nancy Pelosi on Thursday was talking about do the 25th or we're going to impeach. Gave him till Friday, gave him till Sunday. Now she's giving him till Wednesday. I'm like, okay, seriously, dude. When I hear people, right? When people talk about why do Republicans expect Democrats to, you know, be the ones to reach across the aisle every time and always be the ones who, well, because they can, because Republicans have learned, because Democrats have fucking trained them that if I punch you in the mouth, you're not going to punch me back. If I punch you in the mouth and you get angry, I just, oh, sorry. You should play nice with me now. And they'll play nice with me now, you know, because so I just, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if it's a third party. I don't know if we just need people like Nancy Pelosi to get the hell out of the way so that we can have people like AOC. And I don't know what the answer is. I just know that in the entirety of my life, the Democratic Party has always been run by a bunch of pussies. And that's why Republicans do what they do, because they know that the Democrats are not going to have the fortitude to stand up to them. I think it's, you know, I think there's not enough Democrats that have ever grown up in a neighborhood where they've had to survive on a playground. You know, if a bully does something to you, you fucking punch him in the mouth.
You punch him right in the mouth and then he stops messing with.
Right. You know, so I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I just know that I'm frustrated with them.
Yeah,
That's
I
how
agree.
I'm doing.
Yeah, I agree completely. And in that tone, you have a lot of people calling for healing this week, and a lot of the people that are calling for unity and healing are the same people that were stoking this fire. And that goes back to your what you were saying about a bully. When you punch a bully in the mouth, now all of a sudden he wants to be your friend, right? These people know that they're wrong now. They're losing book deals. They're being
kicked
charged
off social
with
media,
getting sedition. Some of them may lose their seats in Congress or the Senate, and now there's a hope for that, right? But now, because of all those things, they're saying, "Oh, but what about unity and healing? You didn't care about unity and healing when this guy in office was freaking trying to rip the country apart. You didn't care about unity and healing then, because we were trying to have unity. Black Lives Matter, right? And you guys didn't want unity and healing.
Terrorist group, and they called you guys thugs, and they called you guys everything short of being able to just come on out and drop the N-bomb on you guys is what they called you guys.
Yep.
And you're right. But here's the thing. I think the odds are 50-50 that Democrats are going to buckle. And
they're absolutely going to buckle.
And that's why I think they're a bunch of pussies.
Yeah, I have no faith in either party, honestly. Like, I don't consider myself I obviously don't consider myself a Republican.
Right.
But you know, I always vote Democrat because they are more in line with what I believe in.
Right.
Either party that represent us.
You know who Representative Cori Bush is? She's from Missouri.
Yeah.
She's a freshman. She just took off. She just got sworn in, and she was one of the first ones to draw up our articles of impeachment. She was one of the first ones to say we need to kick these SOBs out of Congress who supported this. She is one of the most inspiring people. She is, and I'm going to say this because I mean, honestly, I don't give a shit. I'll say this. She's straight up ghetto fucking fabulous. Like, you listen to her talk, you know where she's from. You know, she's not, she's not some polished turd. She's straight up from the shit neighborhoods. She's been unemployed. She's been homeless. She's been a single mom. She's put herself through school. She doesn't talk all polished. She talks straight up like you and me would hear in the way I'd expect somebody in St. Louis to talk. But the girl has got her head on straight. And the best thing about her is she does not fucking play. There's just no bullshit with her. There is none of this. We need to give them a chance to reconcile with us first kind of shit. It's like, no, they fucked up. They done fucked up, and now we need to get rid of them. And I'm like, if what we need is 400 more Corey Bushes.
Yeah. Hey, I think the way we heal is to hold these fuckers accountable. That's how we heal. Hold them accountable and let the next set of assholes know that if you get in one of these seats, we're not gonna take your shit.
Yep. Because there are people who are considering running right now who are watching, and they're seeing what people can get away with, and they're like, oh shit, I can push it a little further and see what else. That's how we got Donald in the first place. That's how we got some of all of, Donald didn't happen in a vacuum. It's not like one day we woke up and it was like, how did he become president? You can work your way from Donald backwards, and you can see where, the Michelle Bachmans led to the Sarah Palins and led to the Donald Trumps. And it's just whatever. But enough of that shit. I'm sick of talking about those motherfuckers. I hate them so much. Since we didn't get to do our first episode, I did want to talk about the stuff that we did a first episode, and we did it with Nurse Adrian, and she was amazing. And a lot of people have actually responded, and they absolutely think as highly of her as we do.
Right.
Today, while we're recording this on Monday, I posted the video of some of the stuff that I didn't make it onto the podcast, where she was talking about Hurricane Michael and dealing with all that stuff. I'd say go check it out. It's YouTube/the Swirl. But dude, has your dad gotten the shot?
He has not. And honestly, I think the next time we bring her on, actually we might want to bring him on before that, but I think the next time we bring her on, we have him on at the same time.
I would love that. I would love that.
It would be amazing. It would be entertaining for sure.
Right.
I mean, you've seen some of the texts from my dad. He's a character.
I like it.
Yeah.
All right. So I say we do that.
I'll reach out to him today and we'll set it up.
All right. And for those of you listening, one of my favorite texts that you got from your old man was, we're not upper crust, but we're not at the bottom of the pipe can either. We're somewhere right in the middle there.
We're somewhere in the middle.
I'm like, all right, we're not upper crust. That's what we should have named the podcast. Not upper crust.
Not upper crust podcast. I'm gonna make t-shirts with that. Not upper crust.
That's right. But we wanted to talk. We haven't talked about it. Why we wanted to do this. We talked about a little bit about it, but this whole thing is a passion project for you, me. It isn't just going to be, we started out with it being about where black lives and brown lives and where we cross. And because so much of our history is one of division, where people have tried to pit us against each other. And they try to do that pretty much with any minority group. If you look at the history of this country, there was a time where everyone hated Italians, everyone hated the Irish, everyone hated the Chinese, everyone hated. And so it's nothing new.
Yeah.
This is who we are as a country. And we wanted to find a way where we could look and say, because the reality is, when you strip away everything else and you look at the black community and you look at the brown community and you just look at the volume, the numbers, there's more of us than there is of anybody else collectively. Yep. We can effectively change this country if we could all find common ground and go forward accordingly. And I think that's what the goal is.
And that is the goal. And the civil rights movement, you had Cesar Chavez marching, but you have Martin Luther King fighting with him for that, right?
Yep.
For labor rights and vice versa. It was never just black by themselves. We had rabbis and we had Catholic priests and we had people marching with Martin, right? We had, and in the same light, Cesar Chavez had the same thing. There were black and Filipino workers out in those fields that were marching with those guys. So we want to bring that That's the spirit of what this podcast is supposed to be.
Right. And I want to make something abundantly clear, because I don't want people to get it twisted and think that we are anti-white. Because your best friend is, well, he's half white. And if
He's
you were to
half.
look at him, you wouldn't know that he was half white. Uh, Ricardo Martinez.
Yeah, he has
And,
the most Mexican
yep.
like white bread.
Wow. Oh, and I mean, honestly, most of my friends are white. My wife is white. Uh, Not to get all Jerry Maguire on you, but I love white people. I just hate assholes. And
Exactly.
I mean, and you and I will be straight up. Assholes come in every flavor. There are
Absolutely.
assholes that are black. There are assholes that are brown. There are assholes that are white, Chinese. I mean, so don't get it twisted. We are not anti-white. What we are is very much about finding the common ground that we all have. Because at the end of the day, one thing that we all are is human, right? And
Absolutely.
there are certain things that entails, and once we figure out how to focus on that instead of we'll be able to do something.
Yeah, I had you might have seen it. I got into it with a guy I served with, and you told me afterwards, you're like, you need to find better friends or something like that. But anyway,
I tell that I've been saying that to a lot of my friends lately.
And he was someone I served with back in the day, so we kind of kept contact. But he commented on one of my posts saying, "Oh, you're saying all this stuff, and maybe your circle's gotten different since you left the military and something like that." And I'm like,
Yeah.
my circle's still the same, but you can't tell me that you love me and then follow someone with rhetoric that wants to kill me.
Right. That is the same conversation I seem to have had with a lot of people, and they just don't seem to get it. I mean, I don't think she's going to listen to this ever, but I have a neighbor who lives next door. She's a renter. The owner of the place is in the military, and he was hitting me up on Saturday trying to find a plumber, and they're all closed. It's a small town, and nobody
Right.
works on the weekends here. So I'm like, well, I'll go over and take a look if you want. And I know her. She's sweet. She's a really sweet lady. And I'm working on her. I mean, I literally had to fix her toilet seat because the seal wasn't whatever. So I'm taking out her toilet seat. I'm going and getting a gasket, and I'm down there sweating my ass off, and I'm doing all this, and we're talking. And she's like, I really wish somehow politics comes up, and she's like, I really wish people would stop dogging me because I, support Trump. People don't have to be mean about politics. Blah blah blah. I didn't say anything, but she asked.
Yeah.
Or she brought it up, I should say. And she's like, I just don't understand why people get so angry about Donald Trump and why they have to be so mean. I said, well, you're in the military. You're going to have people from both sides of because she's also in the military. And I'm like, you're going to have people think that the military is just a bunch of right-wing conservatives, but you're going to have people from
All walks of life. Yeah.
all walks of life. Yeah. I said, so you kind of know that. And it doesn't matter who's president. There's going to be a group of people that's going to hate him, a group of people that's going to love him. Yeah, but I don't understand why people have to be mean about it and why, they're appalled that I would vote for a guy like Donald Trump because I'm a woman. I said, I don't know. I can't speak for everyone else. I just know that I would never vote for somebody who would seek to dehumanize me and shit all over me as a human being. But that's just me. Her fucking face. That was the end of that conversation. But it really, I mean, I don't know. How are you going to do that? How are you going to tell somebody that you love them and then support someone who would dehumanize them? And I mean, let's be brutally honest, right? If you're a woman and you support Trump, if you're not hot enough for him to fuck and you're not willing to let him fuck you, you have no purpose to him.
None.
If you're a dude and you voted for Trump, if you're not filthy rich and donating to him, or you're not powerful and can't give him something, you're fucking useless to him. I mean, just listen to the way he talked about the people who were, doing his bidding on Wednesday. He was disgusted by them. He was grossed out by them.
Yeah, after he told them to do what they did.
Right. He does not like his people. He doesn't. And they just don't get it through their fucking heads.
No. He just loves the fact that they love him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
The only thing Donald Trump loves more then a Donald is a McDonald's. That's it.
I would say the only thing he loves more than Donald and McDonald's is his daughter.
I was gonna say that too. Yeah,
Yeah,
which is weird, but yes.
incredibly weird because he doesn't have the typical fatherly love for her.
No.
Next week,
Next week.
hopefully, our country will be somewhat sane, although I'm not counting on it, at least not till January 21st.
Yeah.
So we'll either talk about some of the things that we haven't been able to talk about in the last 2 weeks, or hey, we're going to catch up on how much further along the end of the world has come. Good Lord, man.
Yeah.
Oh.
Hopefully next week there will be a little more calm. I do know that there were threats that something might happen on the 17th. Hopefully it doesn't. That way we can talk about actually stuff that affects our community. Not that this doesn't.
Yes. Well, this
but
definitely affects our community.
It does. Yeah. Because our communities who put, Joe Biden and Kamala in office, to be honest.
Yep.
But
by the way,
we can. Yes, sir.
Did you see the meme I put on my, because since I got banned from Facebook for a week. By the way, I want to point something out. I got banned and you don't hear me whining about free speech. I said some ignorant shit. They said, you can't do that. Take a time out for a week and think about what you did. And I'm like, well, all right, whatever. So, but I did share on my Instagram a meme. I'm gonna tell my kids this is Captain America, and it was Stacey Abrams.
Yeah.
I love that. I actually sat there last night and I'm like, I should get a Stacey Abrams tattoo.
I don't know how S would feel about that.
Yeah. Well, I would put it somewhere where nobody's going to see it except for her, like right here on my chest. So every time we're making love, it's like, boom, she sees Stacey Abrams.
She's just staring right at her.
Right at her.
Get it so the eyes follow her around the room too.
All right, brother, man. We'll talk next week. I'm gonna get this up. It'll be up there tonight. All right.
Cool. Yeah, I'll reach out to my dad and I'll let you know.
Yeah, and I'm gonna start rigging out some phone calls for some guests because I know a lot of really cool people.
I got a couple cool people too.
All right, man.
I think we'll have a good show. I'll see if Matt can join us one of these days.
All right.
Cool.
Next week, same bat time, same bat channel, man.
Yes,
all right,
sir.
love you, man.
Love you too.
All right.